Welcome everyone to the webinar today. Excited to have you all join us for this informative webinar on attribution. And we will start by doing a brief introduction of our panel members and our presenters today. So first, I'm Mike Delapena, Chief Strategy Officer at InMarket. Been with the company about 2 years and excited to bring you through this study we did in partnership with Forrester Consulting. And I'll hand it over to Nick Mayberry from Forrester Consulting to give a little bit of a brief intro on his background.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. As Michael mentioned, my name is Nick Mayberry and I'm a consultant in Forrester's Total Economic Impact practice. I've been doing this for more than a few years now. We develop case studies that are based on customer evidence that explore the financial impact that investing in certain technologies can have on an organization. And so I'm here today to present you some of our findings on our study on InMarket's Lift Conversion Index Attribution Solution, or LCI.
Awesome. And also joining us is Rachel Stevens, who is Group Vice President of Digital Marketing and Loyalty at Belk, and formerly with Stop and Shop, and one of my favorite clients. So Rachel, welcome. Do you want to give a brief introduction?
Thank you.
All right, folks. So let's dive right into it. Just a few slides. I promise this won't be painful on who InMarket is and what we're doing today. So first, InMarket has been around for 10+ years, and our mission really is to help leading brands supercharge the growth and commerce they have using a suite of solutions that include a 360-degree consumer intelligence product, as well as being able to execute real-time omni-channel campaigns. And the way that we do that is really built on a foundation of data and unique data. So that starts with intent data through surveys and shopping lists that we have with owned and operated apps that allow us to determine or understand what people say they're going to do. In addition to that, we have location data, which is permission-based through an SDK that we have with about 50 partner apps. And that helps us understand what people do, where they go, how often they visit, how long they stay. And then the third data input that is unique is our transactional data. So through those owned and operated apps, we have a panel of permission-based users who either link their credit card data or share scan receipt data with us on their purchases after a visit. That foundation powers a stack of solutions that allow us to help brands learn through insights and attribution, build real-time campaigns through activation and audiences, and then ultimately measure those campaigns based on the behaviors comparing control versus exposed individuals. So what we're doing today was really built on the foundation of kind of the last 18 months and the changes that we saw in the market. And part of those changes really created unique and new challenges for marketers. So they affected us both personally and professionally. And for marketers, those changes, particularly brought about by the pandemic, had a real impact on helping marketers really drill into the return on advertising spend that they were getting from their initiatives. So, and renewed an emphasis on ROI was key to doing well in a rapidly changing environment. The second major change that we heard from a lot of marketers as they kind of navigated this new landscape was, what is happening with consumer behavior? How is it changing? How do I meet my consumer at their moment of need? And being able to report on that and understand those shifts and be where that consumer is at the critical decision points, essentially very, very critical to success in 2020 and 2021. And then the last challenge is, in that changing world, we had the added complexity of a marketing landscape that was changing somewhat, where changes in terms of iOS 14 and above, and what is happening with cookies created some uncertainty and some thirst for understanding how we can maintain those relationships and understand user behaviors as they cross from channel to channel and interact with your brand. So those were the key kind of challenges that brought us to help produce this report. And as a result of those challenges, what we were seeing was a rapid and accelerating investment in attribution software. And in fact, this space is growing quite rapidly. The market and markets report noted that the market globally for attribution software in 2023 was expected to be $3.6 billion. And that is growing at a compound annual growth rate of over 14%. So with those challenges on ROI, understanding consumer behaviors, marketers have taken a deep breath, looked at how they measure in this new world, and invested aggressively into software that's going to help them understand those changes. So it's important to note, as a result of that, the real value of attribution is not only what lies both with what you do with it, but also the value it brings to your organization. So the value in it is for a marketer to understand where your customers go, how long they stay, how frequently they return. It helps you understand what segments or customers to target most efficiently to increase your loyalty. It also helps you understand the impact of your advertising in driving those actions as marketers we all want to have happen, which is a visit or a purchase, and understanding what channel is driving those particular end results is incredibly important in optimizing both your media spend and the way that you talk to consumers across channels as they interact with your brand. So that is really how you use attribution. And I'm going to turn it over to Nick, who's going to walk you through how we looked at quantifying the value of attribution and what it brings to your organization. So Nick, all yours.
Thanks, Michael. Hi again, everyone. Of course, before we get into the good stuff, I do have to stop and make sure that everyone's aware of a few things. First, what we're presenting today is only an abridged version of a full case study. So if you should definitely go consider downloading the report itself if you want the most complete version. Also want you to be aware that nothing we say today or in the study itself should be understood as Forrester making any assumptions as to the return on investment that other organizations will receive from LCI. That being said, the full study does include modeling tables that you can use to provide they provide a framework for you to use your own data to create your own estimates about what you could experience. And then lastly, nothing we say today or in the study should be considered to constitute an endorsement. So I also want to acknowledge, that not everyone here today may know all about our TEI studies. So I do want to provide some brief background. The purpose of TEI's total economic impact studies is to help companies quantify the value of those technologies. We look at four main areas when we are investigating the total economic impact of a technology. This, of course, includes benefits such as cost savings or improvements to revenue. It also looks at costs such as licensing fees or implementation costs. But we also look at two additional categories. One is flexibility. We define flexibility as the future benefits that an organization might get out of an investment, sometimes well into the future. And we also look at risk. So risk factors that we take into account could be anything from the difference in the total number of employees or profit margin between the firms that we looked at. In this case, it might be the investment in LCI, the number of impressions, things like that. So in terms of top line results, Forrester modeled a 3-year impact of investing in LCI that includes a return on investment of 180%, total benefits of $17.4 million, total costs of $6.2 million, net benefits of $11.2 million, and a payback period of 6 months. All that being said, these figures alone really fail to capture the whole picture. Some benefits can't be quantified, and we'll actually end up discussing those unquantifiable benefits later. But for now, let's look at how we determined the total economic impact of LCI. So we follow the same process essentially for all of our TEIs. First, we do our own due diligence. We end up speaking with stakeholders, in this case, stakeholders at InMarket. We use Forrester's own research and leverage our analysts' expertise to all get grounded in the solution. And then we go out and we speak to customers. In this case, we spoke to 4 different organizations that were using LCI. We asked them about their experience using it, what benefits and costs they incurred from its use. And then we took that information, we gathered it up, and we built out a financial model that we applied to something we call a composite organization. So this composite organization is a representative organization that's really meant to encapsulate the various experiences of the customers that we speak with, and also saves us from doing a number of different financial models. Now we only have one to look at that's hopefully more generalized. This study is built around this financial analysis. As I mentioned, also brings in some qualitative data as shared by the interviewees as well. So who were the interviewees that really formed the basis of this analysis? As I mentioned, we spoke with 4 organizations. They're from different segments within the retail industry. So we spoke to a quick service restaurant, a department store, a home improvement brand, and a grocery chain. As you can see, the majority were active in North America. One, however, was a global brand. And then in terms of size, we've got quite a range here from $300 million in revenue all the way up to $110 million in revenue, and from 7,000 employees to 400,000 employees, all of which, of course, were getting benefits out of LCI. So despite these differences, the organizations did share similar challenges regarding their prior state before investing in LCI. These included a lack of understanding of media value and ineffective optimization of their limited marketing budgets. So before LCI, customers really lacked the ability to effectively measure their marketing and any return that they were getting on marketing costs, especially at physical retail locations. So some specific things that customers struggled with included in-store benchmarking, analyzing customer loyalty, and quantifying the impact of advertising on newer channels. One customer shared with us that they really, without understanding the return they could get, couldn't get buy-in to invest in even mobile, which they were considering a new channel. And LCI helped them to do that. And then this lack of understanding, also made it difficult for these customers to make the most of their limited marketing budgets. We heard from a number of interviewees actually that they were just kind of relying on the same old channels that they had always used, and hopefully getting return out of that, but having difficulty tracking that. And these channels could be relatively expensive, So one customer talked about the high creative costs for television advertising, where the minimums that they saw were $250,000 or more. And once they invested in LCI, they could actually see what's the return and actually the efficiency of their spend on different channels, maybe moving some budget away from those more expensive channels if they weren't performing to cheaper channels that might perform better. After deploying LCI, the customers experienced improved income and ROAS, return on ad spend. They experienced increased income from more customer loyalty, cost savings from media mix and channel optimization, and also improved efficiency of campaign analysis. Importantly, these benefits all do stem from the fact that these customers were better able to understand how their investments in different channels were resulting in true, dollar value returns to their business, both digitally and physically in store. So, using the data that we gathered from the organizations, as I mentioned earlier, we built a representative company that we call a composite organization. It's a single representative firm meant to encapsulate the experiences of the 4 customers that we spoke to. For this study, the composite is a retail business. It's generating $40 billion in revenue annually. It has 200,000 total employees, 2,000 physical locations, and it's using LCI to analyze 1 billion impressions quarterly. And then as applied to this composite organization, the benefits of investing in LCI were quantified as you can see here. The improved income and return on ad spend was valued at $6.3 million. The increased income from improved loyalty was valued at $9 million. Cost savings from media mix and channel optimization was valued at $1.9 million. And the improved efficiency of campaign analysis was valued at just over $160,000. Please note that these figures are present value figures for a total 3-year period each. Now let's take a closer look at the benefits and the value that customers are getting out of those. So before investing in LCI, the interviewees noted that they did have the ability to relatively easily track their digital ad spend and what return they were getting on digital channels. But they did struggle to draw a clear line between ad spending, whether digital or on traditional channels, and the return that they were getting in store from that spend. With LCI, the interviewees shared being able to track ad impressions and tie them to physical retail location visits. As a result, they could use LCI data to optimize their marketing and increase the number of incremental visits that they were getting at their retail locations. Interviewees shared lifts in incremental visits reported in LCI when compared against a control group that ranged from 23% at the low end to 40 to 45% on the high end. Additionally, interviewees were able to quantify their return on ad spend thanks to LCI's reporting. So this helped them further optimize channels to improve that return on ad spend. The data that customers shared with us in return to their ROAS that they were getting after LCI it ranged from $8 to $67 with an average of $40. And then in addition to the revenue resulting from increased foot traffic, interviewees also shared that they were able to improve their returns from existing customers. So they described improving customer retention, loyalty, and lifetime value from LCI data. And using the data that LCI was sharing with them to develop campaigns targeting repeat customers and essentially attempt to get them to visit more, which was effective. So we heard from customers that they were able to increase store visits by 25% annually, shifting from 4 visits to 5 visits a year. Additionally, some interviewees noted improving their business's average sales value for these additional visits by 33%. Unfortunately, it was kind of unclear whether this was something sort of due to LCI's data and something that could be repeatable, or whether it was due to pandemic-inspired stockpiling. But I did want to make sure we mentioned it because it could very well have been due to LCI. It just wasn't clear from our research. So armed with the data that linked foot traffic with distinct media channels and spend, the interviewees' organizations could optimize their use of channels and their media mix for better results. For example, one interviewee from the quick service industry was able to parse their audience that made up their incremental foot traffic, match them to the channels that they were coming from and the goods that they bought. And then they could actually see what new products were driving new business, and also which channels were having the biggest impact. This latter insight helped customers move away from channels that maybe were performing or not performing or performing less than other channels, and move their limited budgets to make better use of those and save on costs of potentially very expensive channels that were underperforming, moving that budget to cheaper channels that might perform better. So we spoke with one customer that actually shared saving millions of dollars on direct mail because they saw that they weren't getting the return on that they had hoped or were expecting. And then lastly, interviewees described improving the efficiency of their marketing teams after investing in LCI. So before LCI, they were spending thousands of hours annually analyzing campaigns, quantifying metrics, reporting these to leadership. But after deploying LCI, customers no longer really needed to do a lot of this analysis and reporting work because LCI was delivering them reports based on their campaigns. So the customer from the department store stated that partnering with InMarket provided time savings to their internal marketing team, and that campaign analysis from InMarket was able to really drive, I think it was around 1,800 person hours for their team in savings. And customers described these benefits even with budgets being impacted by the ongoing pandemic. So the interviewee from the quick service restaurant shared that with budgets a fraction of what they had been before COVID-19 and with sales down, that they could still communicate with their customers and be agile and nimble, and that LCI was really a huge help to this. And then, as we did make brief mention of earlier, there are benefits, right, that the interviewed organizations did experience but couldn't quantify. So for this study, these include improved understanding of media value and channel experimentation. For improved understanding of media value, customers noted receiving significant value out of their investment in InMarket because they could finally link traditional and digital marketing strategies to their impact on in-store foot traffic. So the interviewee from the grocery segment stated, we need both digital and traditional advertising strategies. Final awareness really belongs with the mix of channels. And it also provided additional data for decision making. As I mentioned earlier, one of the interviewees was able to look at their increased foot traffic and even link it to new products. What were new products driving that foot traffic, which then allowed them to make potentially better product decisions. In terms of channel experimentation, customers noted that the improved ability to track marketing spend and the resulting impact on in-store traffic meant that they could get more budget for new or experimental channels now that they wouldn't have been able to without those proof points. So one customer shared that they were able to test out new integrations and streaming audio partnerships solely because of LCI's ability to measure them, and they would never have gotten budget for that before LCI. Now to the other side, right, of the ROI here that we're presenting, which is the costs. Customers reported three main areas of costs associated with their investment. The first were fees associated with LCI. So customers paid fees directly to InMarket for the use of LCI. These amounted to a cost per thousand of between 35 cents and 50 cents for every 1,000 impressions run on digital channels, depending on the volume and the commitment level. InMarket also will charge varying flat fees for campaign reports related to other channels like television, radio, out of home, etc. For implementation and deployment, it took 5 FTEs, approximately 3 days, to implement and deploy LCI. This process was described as very simple to stand up by one customer. And then lastly, training and ongoing management. Customers did incur internal time costs for training and ongoing management. So it was 2 hours of time for every trainee. And for ongoing management, it was 10 hours for 5 FTEs every quarter to spend on planning and optimization. So in addition to benefits and costs, our TEI studies do look at flexibility and risk in assessing the total economic impact. Flexibility benefits for this technology for investment in LCI includes adaptation and resilience to market shifts, as well as the use of LCI for brand website. So in terms of that resilience, right, in times of change, the interviewees noted that LCI helped their organizations respond with more agility and nimbleness during COVID-19. For example, one interviewee noted pivoting their messaging in real time based on supply chain disruptions that they were experiencing. They were able to change menu items and change their promotions to make sure that their marketing matched what customers could expect in store. And then regarding the using of LCI for brand websites, the customers that we spoke with were in the very early stages and were just starting to do so. But they did share that they fully expected to be able to start optimizing their website based on LCI data to also drive similar benefits like increased incremental traffic to store, increased return on ad spend. And then, of course, I do want to just make sure we cover risk here quickly. So we also take into account impact and implementation risk when we determine the final value of the benefits and costs that we're quantifying. So for this study, impact risks include total impressions, channel mix, annual ad spend, average ticket or basket size, and organizational profit margin, while implementation risks include the number and type of campaigns run annually, and the number and fully burdened hourly rate of trained employees and employees working on optimization. Well, with all said and done, Forrester estimated the impact of LCI at 180% in terms of ROI for our composite organization, and that equates to $11.16 million in net present value. But now I'd like to actually welcome Rachel Stevens, who's actually one of the customers that we did interview for this TEI. And we're gonna have a brief discussion with her now about her experience with LCI. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. It's great to chat again. The first question I have is really just around your customer journey to LCI. So, if you could help the audience here understand maybe what kind of pain points or challenges you were experiencing before you invested, and why you ended up selecting LCI to solve for those.
Yeah, it's a great question. Great way to start. So I think, when you think about the traditional way that marketers have been measuring some of their media, you look at MMM, or you look at traditional MTA, or a lot of organizations look at last click. And those metrics really, from an MMM MTA perspective, are really lagging. So you don't get the results from, a quarter past a quarter. And from a last click perspective, it's really not accurate attribution of all of your media. Somebody could have clicked on a search campaign, but that's not necessarily what drove them to search. So I was faced with these same challenges that all marketers are. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I was introduced to Ninth Decimal, which was really the first location-based digital media measurement solution, providing answers to some of these elusive questions, especially, did our digital marketing drive foot traffic to our stores? And I was really convinced of the solution's accuracy based on the vast mobile device location-based data set that they had access to. And last year, when 9D became part of InMarket, and since then, the solutions have grown and they really continue to innovate. So not only now do we understand if our digital ads drove traffic, but we can also get sales attribution and broader insights into all of our media and our partners and our channels and our creative and audiences and formats, really that drive the highest incrementality. We don't have to wait anymore for MMM or MTA results, and we don't rely on last click data.
And then given, right, those insights, utilizing those insights from LCI, what do you think have maybe been the most impactful benefits from a quantitative or a financial perspective?
I'd say first and foremost, faster optimization of our omni-channel media mix. I think that one of the clients that you had interviewed identified that, you can become a highly efficient marketing team when you take the guesswork out of a lot of your media placements. And I can speak for my previous company, Stop and Shop, during 2020, we were able to reallocate a significant amount of money in digital media to the channels and the publishers and the audiences that were performing the best for our business. If you think about how disrupted the supermarket business was by COVID, it really gave us that ability to be flexible. And, in real time, we were able to optimize our spend across our marketing ecosystem for maximum return.
That's great. What maybe other impactful benefits did you experience that might not be easy to quantify and they might be more qualitative?
I think that again, I think taking the guesswork out of which channel, but this one may be a little more qualitative. I think that, you can really quantify that impact of your incremental foot traffic from a marketing campaign. So, even if you take your average basket and you say, okay, let's half that, and you say, this is my incremental foot traffic, and you take out your marketing costs, you still can see a positive ROI. So I know you wanted something that wasn't quantifiable, but I'll tell you, a lot of what we get out of, LCI is quantifiable.
Right.
From even from a a partner perspective or a publisher perspective and really understanding, what channels are right, that's all quantifiable in terms of time savings, in terms of efficiency. I mean, I think that that's the whole benefit of LCI, is that you can actually quantify the results.
That's great. And then, how do you go about, how might you go about, right, communicating the value of LCI within the organization, within an organization?
That's tough. I'll tell you that. I think it's sometimes, you come up with an organization, and it's sort of a hard concept for people to understand. Well, I don't get how you can measure these things. And so when you have to explain this, simplifying it in the easiest terms is the best solution. I pulled in all of my partners from finance, and I pulled in my partners from the analytics teams, and I took them through and helped them understand why, this worked for us, and really what the solution did. And I think that when you simplify it and you break it down, it's very easy to understand. I think, Michael mentioned it in his opening that, access to permission-based location data, and understanding, I served up an ad, and there's this exposed group. Did they visit? Did they not visit? Or I didn't serve up an ad. Did they visit? Did they not visit? I mean, it's pretty straightforward and simple once you actually break it down and explain it in layman's terms within your organization.
Great. And then I don't want to necessarily put you on the spot, so feel free to pass on this one. But I did just kind of wanted to know if there are any details you might be able to share, because you had mentioned flexibility earlier, and I was just wondering, in kind of your experience with LCI, what maybe were some specifics or a story or something that really outlines or displays the flexibility that LCI can give you, given, right, all the disruptions in the market over the past 2 years almost now.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the retail landscape changes so often. You really have to be able to pivot based on consumer behavior and trends and macro influences like a pandemic. The InMarket solutions provided the insights that we needed at Stop and Shop for market fluctuations like that. And, for example, during the pandemic at Stop and Shop, of course, we saw that immediate shift towards delivery. But we didn't have the solutions that customers were looking for and customers were migrating to. So we saw through our tools and solution what competitors customers were going to and what solutions they were using. And so we were able to expand our offering within the delivery market by partnering with Instacart. We partnered with Uber. We actually were able to pivot really quickly because we saw exactly where customers were going. We knew what was going on based on the insights that we were getting.
Rachel, one of the things that struck me in some of your comments as you talked about partnering with different departments within the organization to kind of educate them on how incrementality and measurement was shifting. The notion of also moving the organization from a sort of reactive post-campaign reporting mentality to what you noted earlier, just real-time optimization and being able to make shifts based on consumer behavior. Can you talk to that a little bit and its importance in transforming the way that you did marketing at Stop and Shop?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's pretty straightforward. So if you think about MMM, traditional MTA partners, so, you're backloading data, it's a backwards view. Right? So you're not actually in the moment and in the market. And if you're in a retail organization, really understanding what's happening in the market and consumer trends. I mean, consumers can shift so quickly and they can follow a trend so quickly that if you're not able to actually react while your campaigns are in market, then you really essentially are wasting media dollars. And if you're able to shift and pivot, again, it could be, anything from, consumers moving away from television to connected TV, as an example, taking some of your media dollars and moving them in that moment. If consumers are moving from one channel to another within digital media platforms, because of a news cycle or something that's happening, you're able to make those shifts in the moment. And that's really important for retailers because we're all chasing the same consumers and they only have a specific amount of share of wallet, right? So you've got to do everything that you can at your disposal to try and take that share of wallet.
So maybe also one of the unquantified benefits would be reacting quicker allowed you to perhaps steal share.
Yes, I'll
from
give you that, but it's
competitors.
quantifiable. That's a quantifiable one.
Yeah, good. And I know you spent a lot of time investing in the loyalty report and moving those users that you or shoppers that you did steal into becoming loyal members and watching their repeat visitation and their time spent. Was that useful through LCI as well?
Yeah, of course it was. And, at the risk of sounding like a in-market commercial, I would tell you that like that is one of the biggest benefits of, you can look at where your consumers are shopping, what competitors are shopping at, and being able to steal some of their share of wallet, but then activate them within, your ecosystem and actually maintain a relationship with them and build loyalty with them, because, you actually see that behavior shift, and then they become possibly, hopefully, part of your database, and you're able to continuously, nourish that relationship.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, if you're trying to figure out, the financial impact of your ad campaigns, sales attribution, I think you really have a very cohesive view, and it's all within one system. So that's another benefit, to
Right.
advertisers and to marketers, is that being able to, simply and easily and quickly access this data, because your leadership is clamoring for this information. Of course they want to know, what are you doing and how is it effective? Being able to quickly access that within one system is really important, and another big benefit.
Yeah, and I think as marketers, we are in a world where we have a lot of tools in our toolbox, and a lot of the systems that we now have access to, and LCI has those levers that you can switch and allocate more budget to a segment or to a media property or to a creative unit that allows you to really make the most of those dollars. We open this up in sharing what marketers are challenged with from an ROI perspective, given the pandemic and changing consumer behavior. And I think as marketers, we want to have as many of those tools at our fingertips, and as many of them to make those changes in real time as possible in order to do our jobs better and to drive that ROI. So I think, watching how you have used the tool has just been, I think, a real great case study for what is possible in a world where technology and data and responsiveness to a shifting consumer has become so essential to being a great marketer today. And I'll embarrass you a little bit, and that's why we recognize you as a Lyft leader this past year. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. And, I'd say that every marketer has, the same challenge of, where should I put my message? And, everybody has an opinion within your organization of where your message belongs. So it takes the passion and the opinion out of the equation, and it makes the answer more scientific. And so I think that it's, in my perspective, a marketer's dream.
Awesome. Maybe we should open it up to some questions from folks. If you have a question, please feel free to post it in chat, and we can certainly address it with either Nick or Rachel or myself. Do we have any questions?
It was so clear, Michael, that there are no questions.
So amazing. Nailed everything.
Rachel, a question for you just came in. How many media types did Stop and Shop measure?
So, I mean, traditional media mix. So really it was everything from terrestrial, radio, television, everything. I mean, we looked at every single channel, and I think, part of the problem that we faced is that we had information overload, but nothing really consistent. And so we were striving to find that consistency, you know, in one place. And so, you know, we looked at it. I mean, it was social, it was digital media, you know, programmatic, everything.
Awesome. And Rachel, based on kind of your experience, what, you know, we're coming into Q4 where, you know, there's reported shipping challenges and consumer behavior is shifting a little bit because variant spikes in some places around the country. What sort of predictions do you have for the remainder of 2021 and 2022 as you look at kind of your new role and your new charter at Belk? What do you see as kind of some issues to watch as marketers?
I mean, I think the biggest issue is being able to understand the right time to get your message out because of inventory problems, right? So, you know, if there's 60 shipping containers, you know, stuck in LA or whatever that number is today, that means that there's not a lot of product on shelves. So you've got to actually make sure that you're not driving traffic when you don't have the product. So that's a fine balance, and really staying on top of, you know, your merchants and understanding from your merchant perspective when stuff is arriving, what's arriving. You know, I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for this holiday season. And then, you know, who knows what, you know, inventory positions are going to look like moving into 2022.
So starting early and also focusing on the products that you do have inventory for.
Yeah.
To get that message out. That's awesome.
I'm telling a lot of people, like, start your Christmas shopping now, just because product availability is, you know, going to be a problem for all retailers.
Yeah, and I think you'll see some shifts that marketers should have on their radar. So with that, I think, you know, substitutes are going to be more popular. So if you're a brand marketer, you know, the need to advertise so that that consumer who is looking for your product doesn't shift to another product or brand, going to be critical. I think also people might be traveling to more stores and further to get the products that they want. I think services maybe like curbside for convenience when that product does come in may be increasing, as will gift cards, as we saw last year. But certainly lots of consumer behavior that marketers should be aware of and monitor as we move into the peak season.
Yeah, I mean, shipping delays too. I think that if you think about e-commerce was on fire last year, you know, because people didn't want to go in the stores, but this year there's a lot of shipping delays. And, you know, so that could drive people back, as you said, you know, to, you know, maybe curbside or back into stores.
Yeah, awesome. Any other questions from the folks online?
Rachel, what was your biggest surprise learning that you got out of LCI?
I think that this sounds really crazy, but I think really just that impact of digital media. You know, I think that we all look at our phones, and, you know, I'm one of those people who I see a digital media ad and I get super annoyed, and I'm like, I just want to click out of it and I want to get away from it. But it's obviously, it leaves a lasting impression. So I undervalued previously digital media, you know, traditional, like programmatic. And I think that the biggest shock was like actually how much it was driving foot traffic to our stores and traffic in general. And I think that, you know, incremental foot traffic. And, you know, I think that it completely changed my opinion because, you know, when you started out years ago with banner ads, I mean, you know, it was definitely the best way to go, but then you started having all these different ad formats come out. So when you're on your mobile device and you've got a complete takeover, or you've got this annoying ad that chases you all over no matter where you go, you know, I think that there's a balance of not annoying customers, but making a lasting impression. And I think you have to make sure that you're doing it right. And you've got the right creative in that specific format to actually make sure that you are driving the incrementality. And I was surprised to see that we were.
That's awesome. Another thing you mentioned is, the incrementality in terms of being able to articulate the success, but it's really not that complicated an equation, right? I think, as marketers, we're always looking for that ROI and ROAS, return on advertising spend. And sometimes we overcomplicate it. And I think even a swag in terms of what you mentioned earlier in the presentation, you have your incremental traffic and you have your average basket size or ticket. And that will give you a sense of return on advertising spend or ROI in its simplest terms. Now, obviously, you can get a lot more sophisticated by tying to purchase data, but what's your feeling in terms of, is that level of detail asked for or required by the executive team or boardroom, or has a kind of swag in terms of basket size is it sufficient to prove your case in terms of program success?
I think that gets back to making sure that you've got your analytics team on board with you from the get-go, and that they believe in the methodology of exposed versus unexposed and true visitation versus modeled visitation, right? So I think that that's where the education of how this all works is important. And so if you get them to buy in to that, then that calculation is fairly straightforward. You do say, okay, I drove 10 incremental trips, and my average basket, is say, $10. You can actually then, subtract out your cost of advertising and, again, like figure out what fraction of that average basket you want to apply to the incrementality, and you'll still see that you have a high return on your ad spend.
That's awesome. So simple usually is always best.
Yeah. The simpler, the better. I think that we do try and overcomplicate things, and I think a lot of times as marketers, we don't believe what we see. And, which is again, why I really like this solution, just because it's pretty straightforward. It's hard to argue with the data and the math on this.
Yeah, that's great. Any more questions for Rachel or Nick?
There's
Okay,
one final
well-
question for you, Rachel.
Okay.
When you presented the findings that you got from the attribution and measurement to your business management, how valuable did they find the insights, and what did they want to learn more about?
So I would say that the biggest change was how we demonstrated the significant value of digital marketing. And the biggest change was that we shifted dollars from traditional to digital based on the results that we were seeing. And I think that it was believable, and our leadership team completely, they were aligned to that, because it did mirror what we had been seeing in our traditional, MTA, MMM measurement. But again, that was from a long time ago. So, you're always in a look back model, but when you actually have these results, and they do validate, but again, in a better, more efficient way, because you're optimizing, it sort of gave us that, it gave us the ability to sell in exactly, what we were showing them in the terms of the results, but also gave us the ability then to shift around some of our dollars and apply more into digital media.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
Michael, a
Rachel.
final question for you.
Okay.
Sorry, one final question. What is coming up in the future for LCI Next Gen?
Yeah, so we're really excited about continuing to build on the success and functionality on LCI. And there's a couple of key features that are now in market, which I'm happy to share with you. One is our optimization engine. So taking all the great feedback of folks who are using the tool like Rachel and putting at their fingertips the ability to optimize as a campaign is in flight, whether it's moving targeting and media to segments or creative or particular publishers. that is now at the user's fingertips, and they can watch that data come in and make the necessary changes to, again, address that key pain point of making the most out of every dollar and driving return on advertising spend. In conjunction with that, I'm really excited to share that we have now the ability to do sales lift. So as you think of a campaign and as you think as a marketer, the ability to achieve the holy grail of doing everything from planning to understanding the results in terms of purchases in a single tool, that is now possible through InMarket. And LCI is taking in our first party and partner party transactional data to help brands understand not only if an incremental visit took place, but if an incremental sale or transaction took place. So the ability to provide an additional layer of ROI into the tool is now available in LCI. So encourage everyone to check out a demo. I don't want to be too salesy on this, but really cool functionality that I think was built for the challenges that marketers have today. So with that, I want to thank you all for attending. I want to especially thank first Nick. A lot of people don't realize the amount of heavy lifting and work that goes into putting together one of these Forrester TEI reports, but it's extensive interviews, it's validating the data that is given, it's doing an in-depth analysis on the actual economic impact. So thank you to Nick and the entire team behind him that made that possible. And then to Rachel for pushing us to be better and sometimes being hard on us to be better, which makes the tool what it is today. So thank you for being a leader. Thank you for using all the functionality that our attribution tool has and putting it to good use to help grow your company and your business. So your input has been invaluable and your relationship with InMarket has been truly treasured. So thank you for that. And then finally, I want to welcome you all to attend the next webinar, which we'll be holding around the holidays. So we're going to be looking at trends, predictions, and strategies for not only building, but executing holiday campaigns in this ever-evolving market. And that webinar is taking place October 5th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 12 Central, and 1 p.m. Eastern time. My client strategy team will be giving that presentation. And those are the folks that are in the data, helping marketers like Rachel and others really identify those shifts, and more importantly, proactively addressing them with solutions that meet the consumer in that moment of need. So with that, I thank you all and wish you all the best this holiday season, and really appreciate you attending today's webinar. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.